On today's Comfort Kills episode, we meet a native New Yorker of Puerto Rican and Dominican descent. Born to two teenage parents and immigrant grandparents, statistically, the odds were against her. Jessica Gonzalez defied the odds and became the first in her family to achieve higher education, as well as travel the world. She studied multiple languages, lived in 3 countries, wrote a children's book, and has since returned to school to pursue communications science. Jessica is on a quest to gain better understanding in communications and here to share with us her journey thus far. Welcome, Jessica. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Of course. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to, be, social, all that stuff, bringing you everything. Yeah.
Yes. So when we met during our meet and greet, I really loved your energy. You have such a positive, happy, joyful vibe about you. But you come from like just the story of what I feel like a lot of people can resonate with. And so I'm excited to have you here today, bring you on here, have you share your story and really just let everybody kind of hear who Jessica Gonzalez is and resonate with what you have and then where you've gone from there. So let's go all in and let's hear who you are. What's your background?
So intro, I am Puerto Rican and Dominican. My mom's Puerto Rican, my dad's Dominican. My grandparents came here around in the 60s, 1969 actually to be exact, to seek more opportunity because Puerto Rico was going through a really bad time, a recession, and my family business at the time was kind of failing. So it's like, okay, we need more opportunity. So you know what? They didn't really know English. They just said, we're going to America. And same with my Dominican side. My great-grandmother, who, I have a picture of her on my Instagram. She's like one of my biggest inspirations is that after her and my great-grandfather got divorced, she took like basically 8 of her kids and said, you know what, we're going to America. Wow. Everyone pack up, we're going to America. Oh, wow. And my grandmother was 15 at the time. And she's like, okay. And basically, my family, my Puerto Rican and Dominican side ended up in New York City around the same time, which is kind of crazy. And then my mom and dad were born and my dad was born into like a more free-spirited household where he kind of went and did whatever he wanted, while my mom grew up in a very strict household, which caused her to kind of rebel. And in turn, that resulted in them having me at 18, which very much has impacted how people saw me as I grew up, and it impacted how I saw myself because very much so it was awkward whenever I had made friends at school. I remember distinctly when I was like 5 or 6, I had a friend and she introduced me to her dad, and he was older, like gray hairs and everything, although I have gray hair too, so no shame in that.
Right, yeah.
But I very much tried to introduce my mom to him, and she was just so uncomfortable. My mom didn't even go to PTA meetings or anything because
she felt out of place. Yeah.
Absolutely. Having a child at 18, like I'm 24 now, and that would scare me. But I feel like in a way, as my mom says, she's like, I felt like it was something I was meant to do because I didn't know what I was going to do. Yeah. Because my parents didn't come from opportunities. My mom didn't even know how she would pay for college most of the time. So for her, it's like, maybe I can do better than what I had if I have this baby and maybe give her or him, they didn't know. It was the 90s, back then, give her or him the drive and the ambition and the energy that she wished she had from her parents, which is very, typical, go to school, get married, have kids, that's it.
Yeah.
My mom and dad were always like, you deserve better. You can do anything you want because at the end of the day, like, how are you any different from anyone else who grew up in like a doorman building or anything? You're amazing. You're our kid, and we believe in you no matter what.
Wow.
So I think that's been the biggest impact is having a healthy mentality drilled into me from my parents who didn't have that. And I guess it goes back to, raising your kids with what you think you didn't have.
Right.
But it's always felt like a scarlet letter having a mother who's 18 years older than you and a
Yeah.
father who's 20 years older than you.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
yeah, I'm not good at getting my words together, but yes, sorry. Yes, you go.
No, that's really remarkable, because I resonate with what your mother went through, right? So I actually got married really young. I got married at 19 years old, and actually my husband was 18, getting ready to turn 19 the day after. And it was so fast, and probably the dumbest thing we could have ever done, like the dumbest, best mistake we could have ever made. So we got married super, super early. And that's because we were military, and that's kind of like the military lifestyle. You kind of meet, you fall in love, you get married. Like, it just seemed like the right thing to do. And that was kind of the culture of what it was like in the military as well. And so got married at 19, ended up having our first child at 21, second child at 23. And so relatively young parents, very normal in the military community, because some girls were younger than me having kids, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I, being of Asian descent, now I think age is finally catching up to me, but being of Asian descent, I felt like genetically I looked much younger. Like, everybody always thought I was like 15, 16 years old when I was like 20 something. Yeah. So it was kind of like a curse to look so young and be around other people who are just looking at you like, are you the sister, or are you like, who are you? And I'm like, oh, not the sister. My kids came out of me.
Yes.
Like, I had them for 9 months. So I understand that. So in the military community, it was easy to make friends and have people with like similar age groups, having kids, our kids' age groups. But then we also had the situation where when we weren't in a fully exclusive military community, the parents of the other kids were successful career people who are like in their 30s and 40s. And here I am, some young 20-something-year-old, and they didn't want anything to do with me. And I kind of felt like the moms were kind of like, stay away, you're too young, I don't want you coming near, like,
yeah,
like as if I was going to steal everybody's husband or something. It was just like a weird dynamic. And so I totally hear what your mom's saying about not feeling comfortable with coming around like other parents of your kids' age group and feeling like you're outcasted, totally outcasted.
I think it's kind of the stigma is that, oh, you may have been like a young, loose couple who, had a little slip up, and now you guys are having babies and all this stuff. And then it's just very much like, okay, well, your kid is probably going to end up the way you did, having a kid super young. So I don't know if I want my kid to associate with you and give this idea that, you're going to end up the same way. You're going to get pregnant at 18. You're going to try to convince my kid that maybe it's cool. You guys can have kids together, all that stuff. It's so pretentious to think that way.
I never even thought about that. I didn't even think that far. Oh my gosh. Oh, now I'm like, I've got all these thoughts in my mind. That is crazy. I've never even thought about that, Jessica. That's insane.
It's crazy. I mean, it did end some friendships, but the ones who knew me and knew my parents stayed and are still here to this day. Yeah. But it is something that I'm glad that like now you're kind of like, oh wait, now I need to think back a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's like it's kind of crazy how people think. Everyone's different. Yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm very much like, I'm gonna show you me. This is my family. You can judge us if you want to come around and stick around, then yeah. But at the end of the day, it's your choice if you actually want to stick by those morals and whatnot. Yeah.
That's insane. Oh my goodness. Now I'm like really thinking back. Like I'm thinking back at all the birthday parties where parents would come and they're looking at me like, who's the mom? And I'm like, I am, that's me. They're like, oh, now I'm understanding why, like the strange looks. Oh my goodness. I'm just going to have to think on this for a little bit afterwards. But wow. Yeah. So 100%, like one of the things that like my cousins and I love to talk about is just like ending generational curses, right? Not letting what happened in our childhood and our upbringing be translated into our kids and their generation and their upbringing as well. So we want to make sure that we're always constantly doing better. We're making sure we encourage them to do better than what we could have ever done. And so I love hearing that your parents, although young 18-year-olds having a daughter at such a young age and becoming like thrown into this like huge responsibility, understood enough to say, listen, we want better for you and you are everything. You know, you have the potential to do so much more and be the best that you can be. And I love that. So what was it like growing up in such a great, like, to me, it's a very nurturing environment. How did you feel growing up in that type of environment, knowing that your mom also had these reservations about being around other parents that are way older than her?
I very much grew up with my mom and her friends as well. It
Okay.
was very interesting because moments my mom's friends who are like, 20 or 21 are asking a like 3 or 4 year old for like advice on friendship. So I very much felt like people saw me as a little adult, as in like she's
Yeah.
gonna do whatever she wants. She's just like us. She has dreams, ambition. She, has
Mhm.
her problems every now and then, but I was very much treated like, she's this cute little individual who's going to do a lot of things. And it's like, how
Yeah.
would you handle this, Jessica, at like 4 or 5 years old?
Uh-huh.
And it's like, I'm going to get older and I'm going to face these situations. So why not talk to adults about it? So I was very open to
Mhm.
talking to adults about, topics of, relationships, friendships,
Wow.
trying to
Yeah.
understand like why we are the way we are. And I
Mhm.
think that I was able to grow a very close relationship with my mother and
Mhm.
father because they were so young.
Yeah.
It didn't really feel that we kind of understand each other. And of course, to this day, we have our differences,
Mhm.
absolutely, when it comes to
Mhm.
opinions or everything. But because of how young she had me, and maybe you can resonate with your kids as well, you
Mhm.
feel like you have this very amazing bond and that you understand what
Mhm.
it's like to kind of grow up with them and see,
Yeah.
your parent kind of fail at things sometimes, but also
Yeah.
see your parent get up and say, I failed, but I'm going to try again at the end of the
Mhm.
day because that's all I can do.
Mhm, mhm. And definitely even coming from that perspective as a young parent, I think, the things that my kids always they don't ask, but maybe I offer it. I'm not quite sure if the question even comes out or I'm just like freely offering advice to them. It's just saying, if I had one regret, it was to have done things differently in the sense that I would have pursued higher education before starting a family. Like I don't regret getting married. I don't regret having the children. I just regret that time frame that I could have optimized by going to school and pursuing a higher education. Instead, I got married, we had kids, and then I went to school afterwards, And so I felt like time was taken away from the kids with raising them and being like fully dedicated to them as children when I'm, quasi studying when they're playing in the playroom and I'm not really actively playing with them or something. And so, yeah, I was just like, they had each other. They're 2.5 years apart. They
It's
have each
always
other as friends.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. It's like that's why you
Mhm.
sometimes have another one. It's like, okay, you need a friend and I can't play with you all the time, so there you
Yeah.
go. Second one comes in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, why do you say that your beginnings do not define you and that instead it actually motivates you? What is it about that?
So I'm actually going to point out a little quote from something. I was watching
Sure.
The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air
Oh, yeah.
like yesterday. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
like take it back in time. And there's this episode in season 1 where you see Uncle Phil kind of
Mhm.
confront his parents and that he lies to his coworkers about where he comes from
Mhm.
because he's
Mhm.
kind of ashamed of growing up on a farm and everything.
Yeah.
And you see his mother confront him and say, "You shouldn't be ashamed of this. I worked
Mhm.
hard. You had a
Uh-huh.
roof over your head. You had food on the table. I let you
Mhm.
study. I made sure you had everything. And we didn't have everything that, some people could have provided, but I gave you the best that I could."
Mhm.
And that's kind of where, you felt it and you kind of see at the end of the episode, he's like, I grew up on a farm. He's making this announcement in front of people. I grew up on a farm to two hardworking people who gave me
Uh-huh.
the best I could have. And without them, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be here. And to
Yeah.
me, that very much resonates with me in that
Mhm.
while my beginnings, like, we didn't have, I think when I was first born, we had a crib, we had a
Mhm.
fridge, we had a
Mhm.
TV and a bed. That was it
Mhm.
in our
Mhm.
entire apartment. Like it was
Wow.
very empty. We didn't have money. We were
Yeah.
on welfare multiple times.
Yeah.
And my parents would like eat one meal a day at certain points because it's so expensive to take care of a baby.
Uh-huh.
And while we're so much better now, I look back and I don't feel ashamed of that because
Mhm.
I look at what my parents did, what the sacrifices were, and the
Mhm.
fact that I am where I am today, I kind of applaud it. And I feel like
Mhm.
there shouldn't be shame in growing up struggling financially, struggling, trying to pay the bills or anything, because at the end of the day, it gives you that motivation to want more, to want to also like learn from these mistakes and understand that your beginnings are how you got there. And it helps motivate me to not want to continue this cycle, this generational cycle that you see of people of at least my family, they had kids very young, but then they didn't know what to do after that. So it's like, I don't want to bring children into the situation I was in, but I appreciate the situation I was in because I know how it is to lose everything and not have that much. So I knew from the beginning that, I did have a certain point where I was a little ashamed of where I came from and how my mom was so young. And it's like, oh, is that your sister? And I'm just like, no, that's my mother. But I appreciate everything because I didn't have anything and I've worked hard for every single thing that I've gotten. So I'm not going to sit back and say, okay, well, now I'm here, so I'm just going to forget, all those bad things that happened in the past. No, because that's what got me here. Why should I erase that? So it's a big motivator.
Yeah, humble beginnings, right? So like for another example, when we were young and we had kids, we were, on WIC, Women, Infant and Children, receiving vouchers for milk, tuna, cereal and juices, I think it was. And, that was not that I was ever ashamed of that moment in time when we were there, but when I look back and I was just like, man, we've been through a lot, like we came from a lot. And and I reiterate that with the children because I feel like their memory really starts when we were in a better position financially and we were no longer using government assistance or anything like that. But I have to drill it into their heads. I'd be like, you know what? We used to not be able to buy milk and we have to wait for that check to come so that we can go grab that milk, and we were like ration control with milk and cereal and then the tuna. And like, it was just like insane. And like, I have to remind them, like, you did not always get what you wanted. You didn't just throw a toy in the cart and say, let's go.
Yes, exactly.
So, and I feel like I feel like I'm doing them a disservice if I don't constantly remind them of that. And maybe I'll have to ask them and make sure, but maybe like it's getting old, but I have to remind them, like, we didn't always come from here. And we used to be really, really broke and did not have the funds to do anything. Like your dad would literally go to work and stay at work and wouldn't come home for lunch because he didn't have gas money to make it home. Like it was like that bad. But I agree, like it's not, we shouldn't be shameful to speak about it. We should be very prideful of it as long as we continue to have evolved, like if I'm still there where I was 20 years ago now, like that would be a little embarrassing. Like I didn't do anything to progress myself and I should have, but I can look back now and say, yes, that motivated me to get to where I am today.
Absolutely. So. And I don't think there's anything wrong with reminding, we didn't have that much. We didn't, because my opinion, you can always go back there. You can always have everything taken from you and go back to where you were. So that's why you always kind of have to maybe, sit at the dinner table and, like if you can pray if you're religious, or you can just say, be grateful that we have everything that we have because we at some point we didn't have this. And you know what? We should appreciate the food. We should appreciate the roof over our heads, appreciate everything that we have right here. So I don't think there's anything wrong with just reminding, hey, by the way, we didn't have all that. And not even coming home for like lunch because you had no gas money. That's another thing. It's like you think back and you're like, my God, we've been through so much, but you can kind of feel like a bittersweetness to it because it's like, gosh, I've really come so far. And I think everyone needs to kind of reward themselves for that. Sometimes I think we forget to kind of reward ourselves for how far we've come. Maybe,
Exactly.
At least my opinion. So.
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel like sometimes we do forget and we're our hardest, toughest critics, right? And so we just tell ourselves we're not doing enough or we're not doing what we thought we would be doing 5 years ago at this point in our lifetime. And we're just critiquing ourselves and it's just not cool. So we have to learn to self-love and accept that we have gone a long ways and we have to be reminded of those little things constantly.
Absolutely. All the time.
So Jessica, what about failure? What about failure and how it maybe brings lessons, or what do you think about failure when it comes to leading you to your success?
I see failure very much as like a stepping stone rather than this thing that absolutely destroys your ego. I would say in my opinion, I think a lot of people, even before the pandemic hit, were living in fear of failure, because I know a lot of friends who say they want to do something. They're like, I want to start like a podcast, or I want to pursue, screenwriting and make my own movie. But then they're kind of afraid of the failure, the criticism that's going to come with it. So we, in our own way, the fear of failure holds us back. And I started to really realize that when I was in my last year of college, kind of thinking, okay, I don't know what I really want anymore, because I was like almost done at this point. So I pursued like, writing a book, and I figured, I'm like, okay, if this does pretty well, then I can take it as a stepping stone. And it did fairly well. I'm pretty proud of myself. And thank you. I see the failures that I've had that I'm trying to think of, but I can't point out at the moment, as just a way of me kind of understanding on how to be better. I don't fear failure anymore. I used to really bad. I think also like high school and college, like the perfectionism was insane when I look back. Everyone's competing to be the best. Everyone wants to be the top on honor roll. Everyone wants to be valedictorian. And it was so exhausting to feel like you have to be 100 the whole time. So, failure mentally and, in certain projects that you may pursue, it's just a stepping stone, and it's okay to not have it together all the time. What matters is that you see this, you're like, okay, maybe I should try X, Y, and Z now. And then you push through it. Because there are times where I think I just was wondering, I'm like, what am I even going to do if I'm not good at this the first time around? But then you realize you get better and better and better. And then I forgot who said it, but it's like you keep rewarding failure, you're eventually going to reward success along the way. So that's a big thing that I stick by, because even if it didn't go that well, I'm going to keep rewarding myself, because guess what? One day I'm going to reward something that was really successful along the way.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize, like I love when I see those types of posts about like, where Jeff Bezos came from and how he started in his garage, or maybe that was Steve Jobs. I don't know. But when you hear those really rich, famous guys that, did something really big and made a lot of money. But like what I'm saying is just like they all came from very humble beginnings, and they've all made mistakes along the way to get to where they are now. But the problem is they didn't come to a complete screeching halt when that mistake happened. They instead used that mistake as a learning lesson to further progress and move on and get better and better and better, and not letting it beat them down, but letting that become a lesson to do better. And I think a lot of people just never see the full picture when you only see like the tip of the iceberg of where they are now when it comes to like the success mountain, and not seeing everything that came like before that. And and so they give up easily, right? Because in this digital world where we're all looking at social media, and we all hear or we see like really amazing things, but you really don't realize it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get to that point. And not everything was like hunky dory and it was just perfect, and it was just now like this person is filthy rich or like super successful or has an amazing career. It all came from somewhere, and they all worked really, really hard to get there. And so like just like a little motivating point for ourselves to say, they did it, but it didn't come without failure as well.
Absolutely. And I think I'll just like touch on social media briefly for a minute, is that we often share our successes, but we never really share the failures. And I don't think like it's up to you if you want to share your failures, because I have seen, people post very vulnerable material on like Instagram, Facebook, but it's very much up to you if you're comfortable with that. You don't have to share that. I mean, if you want to, there's no shame in it, but also, if you don't want to, it's fine. Like take it in and then only share the successes. If you want to be the quiet person, like I prefer also personally being the quiet person, like hustling, drilling myself, than sharing every single thing all the time.
Exactly.
It can get exhausting.
Yeah, it really is. It's very exhausting trying to keep up with the in this day and age, the Kardashians, like it's so exhausting trying to stay at like their level, where we used to say like trying to keep up with the Jeffersons. Now it's like the Kardashians or whoever it is, the Carters.
Absolutely.
And it's just like we just, I think social media has really like, it hurts like our younger generation growing up, like my kids and everything being exposed to social media. I feel like a lot of times I have to remind my daughter, who's 15 now, to say, you realize that like that's not just it, right? Like you can't just think that all this beautiful whatever it is this person is trying to portray is all there is. It came with a lot of work or a lot of pain or a lot of whatever that got them there. So just constant reminders that it's like that's just surface of what you see. That's what they want you to see. So just remember that and know that, you know, whatever you're doing, just continue hustling and doing what's best for you and to the best of your ability.
Absolutely. It's a huge point. And yeah, that's a great way to wrap it up when it comes to the social media trends in terms of success and failure. Absolutely. I agree 100%.
So what about fear and what about the unknown? How are those two things connected?
Oh gosh, the fear and the unknown, it's exhilarating in my opinion, because for me, I mean, I've taken off and lived in other countries as just a way of saying, you know what, no one in my family has ever done this, but it's like, but my mom was very encouraging. She's like, none of us have ever done this, but you do it. Try it. Why not? I think my mom was just like, you know, like, I couldn't, if I was your age, I would do this. I had no problem doing it. So, I mean, the first time I went abroad was in like 2017. I was 17 at the moment. No, 2013, my bad. Wow, I'm losing track. It was 2013 and I went to Spain on a scholarship actually that I worked really hard for.
Yeah.
And I originally was going to back out because I was like, I should probably just stay and study for the SAT instead. But I decided to go, and it was more of a growing experience than I expected because I've never left the United States.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that was a big thing, is that you meet people from different countries, of different backgrounds, religious, cultural, everything, and even like regional in their country. It's like you'd be surprised how territorial it is, and like, where are you from, what city, what town, what region. And you see these people from so many different places with all these different perspectives you never heard before, kind of help you understand, wow, the world is so much more than just your backyard. It's as a way of phrasing it, you know?
Yeah.
So fear of the unknown, like I went to Spain knowing no one, having no friends, and then leaving with a bunch of friends and all this incredible knowledge about how like Norway operates and how the history of Italy and how my friends whose grandparents grew up there. It was kind of like a mind-blowing experience. And then I did it again. And then I went to Amsterdam, no friends, not knowing what's going to happen, leaving with a bunch of friends and having incredible memories of learning from different people in South America, Asia. It was such a melting pot experience. And I went to South America in 2019 before the pandemic hit, which was more of a me trying to clarify my identity as someone who's Hispanic. Because I mean, being born second generation can kind of cause this weird kind of identity crisis for you.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I mean, when I'm here, I'm Hispanic, but then when I go there, I'm American, and it's like, what am I? So I kind of moved to South America as a way of like, well, I want to help people. I went to go teach English for in a small rural area, and, you know, be like this role model for, you know, young girls in a high school. And then, I mean, it was also for me to kind of understand, okay, how do I feel about like being Hispanic, these different aspects of my culture that I agree and disagree with. So it was more, Chile was my last experience abroad so far. And it was very eye-opening to see how much I miss certain traditions that I don't do with my family, such as the family parties every weekend and everyone getting together and just welcoming anyone into your house, just making them feel happy and knowing that they belong there. And then it was kind of, there were like moments where the stereotypes came in. It's like, you know, you shouldn't eat too much because then you're going to gain too much weight, all that, you know, you need to put on more makeup, all that. And I'm just like, well, because I stayed with the host family and I loved it, but I also was like given like a lot of like stuff in that I need to find a husband, I need to have children, all this other stuff. And I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to see where I'm American and where I'm Hispanic. So it kind of clarified who I am. And it did make me appreciate my life here in America more, in that I did see a lot of my kids who like didn't come from the best backgrounds either, but like options were so much more limited in Chile versus here in America. So while I still hope that my words have stuck with my students and that they can do anything, they can pursue anything, I very much emphasize that to them. I very much do come back with a more humble mindset as well. And that, you know, it kind of helped me go back to the past. It's like, appreciate everything that you've had. And I mean, now to me, I kind of understood what my great grandmother in the DR meant when she's like, there's no opportunity here. We're going to America. That's what we're going to do. So it was very eye-opening, and I don't regret that experience at all. It helps you. It's the fear of, will I be accepted? Will I fit in? Will I get questioned?
Right.
That kind of scares you, but at the same time, I mean, like you say, comfort kills ambition, all of this. I'm very grateful for taking myself out of my comfort zone, putting myself in uncomfortable situations at time to kind of help clarify who I am, what I want, and what I want to get out of the world and give to the world, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for that. I totally like understand what you're saying. So I am first generation Asian American, and I battled with this like my entire childhood growing up. I wasn't Asian enough to be considered and accepted into like Vietnamese specifically, into like the Vietnamese community. I wasn't petite enough. I wasn't fair skinned enough. Like I just never fit into the community. And I'm like, you know, well then I'm an American. And then I see my American friends who are either, whether they're Black or they're white, they're all, you know, very Americanized. And here I am coming to like a school lunch or a school field trip with like a lunch in my hand. And it's like a box of rice and like some like meat cooked like with soy sauce or something, you know, like, and they're looking at me like they all have like burgers and sandwiches and pizzas. And I'm sitting here with like this like straight up Asian meal. And I'm trying, you know, it's just like, it's not cute. And I'm like, so I battled with it my entire life, like not ever really being truly accepted either way, till I finally just got to the point in my life where I'm like, you know what, screw this. Like, I'm just going to do me. I'm a mix of everything. You know, Asian people don't think I'm even Asian at all. And then you got the American folks who wants to make fun of every little Asian, anything that I do or say or look or whatever. And it was just hard. It was hard growing up. So I hear what you're saying about like not feeling accepted here and there. And one of the things that my like parents didn't do, because they left Vietnam, which was, you know, a war-torn country at the time, the one thing that they were afraid to do was return, because they weren't sure what the climate was like there in a country that now has suffered many years of wars and has lost the war, you know. And so they did not want to go back growing up, and because they were fearful of our safety. They heard about Americans going, you know, Asian Americans, Vietnamese Americans going back, and were always targeted, you know, with theft and this and that. And so that was, you know, that was back then. So I never experienced going back to my motherland to see what it's like. And I still haven't. And so I'm still terrified of, if I go back, if they would even accept me or acknowledge that I am, you know, one of them. And I'm just like, I'm 100%, man. Like, you guys keep acting like I don't belong here, but I do. And, you know, like we have small little communities here and there but when I enter into a store or a restaurant, no, nobody would ever second guess that, you know, I wasn't what I am. So I'm just, okay, well, all right. Just don't talk trash.
Exactly.
Because I understand you.
Absolutely. It's like you just come to a point where you kind of realize, I am me at the end of the day. I'm actually like, I feel like, especially maybe you can relate, is that you're this amazing hybrid of both cultures.
Yes.
That's so complex to understand that you kind of just blow everyone's mind in a way. And I feel and it's like, you just feel comfortable with who you are. You're like, I'm just me at the end of the day. I'm this hybrid of American and Hispanic culture. Yeah. I'm like the in-betweener. In a way, I've been wanting to write something about that, being somewhere in between. And other, you know, Latinos and Asian Americans can very much resonate with that. Because we saw a huge, like, a lot of immigration in the 60s when, you know, segregation ended. All of us just came here. It's like, okay, we all going to America now. Yeah. And then everyone's here, everyone's bringing their culture, and then everyone's fusing with the American culture. So you kind of just see this giant melting pot, and we're just part of it. So I mean, yeah, while you're always going to have like your desire to connect to your roots, I also do acknowledge my American identity in that I'm very independent, and I very much don't follow the traditions that women are placed on in Latino culture. And I'm pretty sure in Asian culture as well. I've had a few friends tell me that our cultures are very, very similar in those aspects too.
Yes.
So you just find comfort in being who you are and just walking with your head up and just saying, you know what? I'm very happy with who I am, and I'm ready to show the world who I am.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Exactly. Boom. Coin that. We're gonna like rephrase this and like put it on a plaque. Like
Absolutely.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. All right. So how did you break away from even being the statistics, right? So you're growing up in New York and 18-year-old parents, teenage parents, and then just how did you do it? How did you stay focused with where you were heading?
I would say I kind of felt like when I got to high school, because in middle school I was kind of a bad kid. I won't lie. I ditched school a few times. I didn't care. I was going through puberty also, and it's a horrible, horrible time in your life. I mean, there's a reason that show Big Mouth is on. It's a horrible time. But I kind of went to high school and I kind of realized I'm like, okay, I'm at the stage where my parents met. And then they had me, and that kind of started playing in my mind. And I went to a performing arts high school here in New York City. So originally I was like, okay, maybe I'll go into performing. But then I got to high school and didn't like it. Freshman year, this is all still freshman year I'm talking about. First semester, I thought maybe, okay, let me see how things go. And when things didn't come easy to me, like middle school or elementary school, I kind of just got annoyed, and I was like, I should just have things simple and straightforward. But then I kind of, second semester, freshman year of high school, I distinctly remember a turning point where I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to just study hard, because I think my mom just kind of told me, she's like, how you do in high school will reflect how you'll get into college, and if people are going to pay you to go to college. And then I think I talked to my mom, and I think she got me the big book of like colleges, that 300 and something page book, 500 and something, maybe. I don't remember. And then I saw the price for college. I was like, I can't afford this. And I kind of just said, what, I'm just going to push through, work really, really hard. And because the thing is, I didn't want to ask my parents for help in college, because I remember a distinct point when my mom was very upset talking to my dad, I think in the middle of the night. They didn't know I was awake, but she was just very upset. She's like, I just want to give her everything possible, but we can't afford to give her a college education. And I think also my dad kind of talked to me, because I think that next morning I gave my mom a lot of problems. And my dad sit down and talked to me, and he was just like, listen, your mom was really upset last night because she can't give you the life that she wants you to have. So can you just please not be mean to her? So I wasn't mean to her. And then I just started studying nonstop throughout high school, still socializing, still, I was a little popular back then too. I very much hung out with everyone. Thank you. But I very much dug into the books, and I very much tried. I'm like, what, let me study everything. Let me figure out what I want to study when I get to college, so I'm not wasting money. And I very much took it upon myself that I don't want to be like my mom, who's, upset about this kind of stuff. I want to make her proud, and also be able to give that to my kids as well. So it was more of the motivation of seeing my mom in a bad place, knowing that she couldn't give me it. So I'm just like, I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to give you what you wish you could have given me. So I think maybe sometimes seeing your parents at a low point is what gives you that motivation to say, I'm not going to go down that route. I'm going to work super hard to make you proud, and push past the people who thought that I was going to end up just being another pregnant 18-year-old, because I did get that a little bit as well. Not in high school, but I would say in my neighborhood, very much so, is that people kind of saw me growing, and they're like, oh, won't be long until they have grandkids from her. And then I kind of pushed past that, and then they're like, oh, wait. Oh, wait, that just changed. And I kind of just walk. I mean, I still live in the same neighborhood, but I kind of just walk around with my head up like, yeah, I did it. I did it. So it's very much a proud moment. And it's very much like knowing that my mom, knowing that she was so upset by that, is what gave me the motivation to say, I'm going to continue to push past these statistics and also prove everyone wrong. The more you look down on me, the more I feel like, okay, you're giving me the motivation to keep pushing through at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that makes me think of just like a completely slightly off topic, but the first time I took a position in leadership, I had just a very rowdy crew, and my rowdy crew did everything within their ability to try and get me to just like quit and leave the place because they didn't like me. They didn't like that I didn't come with similar experiences. They didn't like that there was a lot of internal candidates who wanted the position who didn't get the position. I came from external and got the position, and they just didn't like who I was. And and just because I was already like a bad taste in their mouth because I was not one of them. And so at my 1 year evaluation, my director was like, all right, so Jasmine, I got to ask you, like, why did you stick around? You had every opportunity to say, you know what, F this, walk away and continue doing what you were doing before and still make the same amount of money. But instead, you stuck it out. Why did you stick it out? And I told him, looked him dead in the eye, and I said, listen, because if I didn't stick it out and if I left the organization, I would have given them exactly what they wanted. I would have quit. I would have walked away. I would have given up. I would have stopped trying. And that's exactly what they wanted me to do. So you know what? It's not game over for me.
Absolutely.
So the only reason why I stuck it out, I enjoyed what I did too. I really did. But I learned so much in that position. But the reason why I stuck it out was because they fueled my fire to keep with it.
That's what you need sometimes,
And like the more you're going to trash talk me or the more you're going to try and say, don't worry, just give it another week or two. She's going to be gone. Or, like in your case, just give it a little bit of time. She'll have the next baby, and like, no, you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong. I am going to prove you wrong.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Sometimes you just need that like negativity to turn it and mold it into your own internal positivity that you put out to the people around you, the world, and yourself. So I very much take the negativity and turn it into positivity. Energy is energy still, right? Yeah. Just take it as you want.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. So how did your experience kind of lead you to where you are? You have a book, you started, you're doing some really cool things. Why don't you tell us about it?
Oh, yeah. So, my book. Yeah, I decided, so when I was around like 7, my mom had my sister. We were a lot more, stable when my sister was born. But around 1 year old, we noticed that she wasn't speaking. So my mom went to a neurologist, and then she was diagnosed with autism. Mind you, this is 2004. So autism's not super big like that. I would say now it's very much like everyone's very open and understands autism. Yeah. But I think when I was little, I didn't have books or anything to really, show like what's it like or what is it gonna be like, because I mean I always wanted a sibling. I told my mom, like, I want a sibling, I want a sister, I want a brother, I want someone to play with. And eventually I was supposed to be an only child. Something happened. Yeah. So yeah. Basically my sister was born and I was just so happy. And my mom, actually, I feel like, having me at 18 and then having a kid with autism as your second, it really got to her. And I saw her at another low point. And I kind of was that person to say, it doesn't matter what people say, because we had doctors openly tell us, oh, she's never going to speak. You guys should just, get used to this. And more statistics that my sister managed to overcome. So I guess that's just the kind of family we are, is that we're just going to constantly prove the statistics wrong. Right now, she's actually, so I made this book to kind of help other kids who want to understand autism and understand like what's it like to be the sibling. Because there's nothing really from the sibling perspective. Like, you have TV shows about the parents, you have TV shows about the person who has autism, but you don't understand how big a role the sibling has in their life. I feel like there's been very much obvious signs of how important I am to my sister. I went away to college for 1.5 years when I initially went, and she was so upset that I left. And I mean, it was very much a heartwarming moment where she just realizes that that's my sister and I need her because she's my sister. And while she can't like say it outwardly like that, it was her actions of being so sad and, like seeing me on FaceTime and knowing I'm not there that really like got to me and said, so important to her. And in a way, I wrote the book as like an homage to us and everything.
Yeah.
I really, really am proud of this because I remember my uncle saying, "Are you comfortable sharing this kind of story and, being vulnerable?" And I'm like, I have no shame in having a little sister with autism. I grew up with shame because that's how it was back then. We're talking early 2000s.
Yeah.
And I kind of am like, I don't want to hide my sister. She's one of the most important people in my life. So
Yeah.
I wrote my book to educate children and to kind of, show my perspective, the sibling perspective of what it's like. Because I mean, it's very much interesting to kind of see the connection you can have with someone without even really needing to talk that much.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing that with the world. I wish you like the most success with that because I do think it's incredibly important. I think sometimes we forget there are more perspectives in this, and it's not just mom, it's not just the actual child, but there's siblings, there's, uncles, aunts, grandparents. There's so many people involved, so many hands in the pot that everybody deserves to share their perspective as well. And I'm glad that you did that.
Thank you. Thank you. Very proud of it.
Yes, so excited for you. So what are we expecting for you in the next upcoming year, 2 years? What do you have plans for?
All right, I'm actually very excited for this because, honestly, I mean, I'm working on currently 3 projects, I think. I have a lot
Wow.
going
Yeah.
on, but they're basically some things like this. I'll admit to something is that we are going to see a possible series of the
Oh,
two
nice.
sisters making
Uh-huh.
friends, going on adventures. I've very much been binging early 90s cartoons because I think I want to create a fun world. Like this is like an introduction. I want to create a fun world for Luna and Cassie to kind of go and meet friends and go get into shenanigans. So you might maybe seeing a second book and maybe a third, fourth, and fifth coming along the way.
Oh, nice.
It's very much going to be more fun based. You'll learn about more about like disabilities and everything. But I work with kids right now, and I've seen so many weird shenanigans that my elementary school kids get into that have kind of been inspiring for me for what I want to write. So I think I'm going to be creating the world of Cassie and Luna. Definitely feel free to check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm currently also going in school for communication science because one of the other career paths I want to take is speech language pathology. And I'm very, very excited because I'm loving the field so far. I'm loving my classes. And I love how it's also working with kids who are disabled and also, working with elderly people. So I'm kind of going towards like, sorry, my gosh, I had a smoothie before this. Okay. I'm kind of going on the path of helping people like my sister being that, person that my sister needed when she was younger. And, just seeing them grow. I know that like my sister, she was so attached to some of her therapists and they were attached to her because they saw how she progressed to say certain things and form sentences that, there are moments that we've seen like her therapist cry because it's like, all right, we're done. And and I'm very much like, I want to do that. I want to help and, help them get to where they want to be and help see them progress in life. And, just, hopefully not cry every time I'm done with a session with a kid. But I very much wanted something rewarding and something that aligned with helping the world in some kind of way. And I will be, another thing is I'm looking to collaborate with other writers. I guess this is also a little announcement. Other creative writers with original ideas who may want to also work with me, feel free to contact me via my website, wherever it may be.
I'll just put it up now.
Yeah, I was like, I've seen YouTubers
There you
do
go.
Okay, so contact me. Because I very much have an idea on a few projects that I want to work on, but we're going to need a team for this. So very much everyone who's a creative, if you're creative, a writer, author, I'm looking for that because I'm looking to kind of build something big. Yeah.
I'm just going to make a live connection right now. But Watch the episode with Lavette Shirley Ely, and she is a children's book author as well, writing it from the perspective of a child entering a healthcare facility. So
Wow.
she's looking as well for specialists in the area of like different types of medical specialties, right?
Yeah.
But I think you would be very beneficial for her. So definitely look at that and then make the connection and reach out to her. So just I'm gonna have to get you guys together on an email, but that's pretty awesome.
Of course. And then there is one secret project that I cannot reveal because that one's going to take also a few years, if I'm being honest. But maybe I might come back on Comfort Kills when, you have your live studio audience and everything.
I know, right?
And, do a follow-up of everything because it would be so amazing to do a catch-up with you as well to see where you are too.
Yes, that would be really fun. I'm looking forward to that. But we've already been connected on social media, and I definitely feel like we're going to stay in touch quite a bit. So anytime anything new's happening, just let me know. But Jessica, so if I were to give you a billboard to put on display for the world to see, what would you put on that billboard?
So I would say this is my motto, actually. Take the things that make you very insecure and make them your bitch.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And trust me, you will see amazing things come out of life. That is how I live.
No, I love it, girl. That is awesome. That is awesome. All right. So one more time for people who would like to contact you, where is the best place for them to find you?
Definitely contact me on my website. You can follow me on Instagram. I am linguistically linda. You could also message me on Facebook. I have the same name on Facebook as on my Facebook page. My email is on my website. I'm available. Anyone who wants to talk to me, just feel free to hit me up. And I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. I am juggling a million things, but I will absolutely get back to you without a doubt.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for coming on today, spending some time with me and just sharing your story, sharing your childhood, your upbringing, and then sharing your sister with us, and now sharing your book with the world. I think you are doing something so tremendous for the world right now with your book and the release, and there's going to be so many people who will benefit from it. So really, everybody reach out to Jessica, get in touch with her. She's a cool chick, and let's just do it. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on.